Signore e signori, benvenuti al Beeper Forum Monzani. Tra qualche istante avrà inizio l'appuntamento con David Grossman e Mario Calabresi che presentano il libro edito da Mondadori La vita gioca con me, un romanzo di intensità straordinaria. Al termine della presentazione, gli autori saranno disponibili a incontrare il pubblico per la firma copie nel foyer d'ingresso. Preghiamo il gentile pubblico di spegnere i telefoni cellulari. Ringraziandovi per la partecipazione, Beeper Banca augura a tutti un buon ascolto.
Buonasera a tutti, benvenuto a David Grossman. Siamo qui per parlare del suo ultimo libro, La vita gioca con me. Io non sono uso, quando faccio le presentazioni, partire dicendo che i libri sono meravigliosi, non lo faccio mai, sono di solito molto asciutto, ma questo libro è meraviglioso. Perché è un libro profondamente commovente e in cui si sente che c'è l'anima di chi scrive. È un libro, lo scopriremo oggi, io non intendo, siccome è stato un libro che mi ha emozionato molto e che si sviluppa pagina dopo pagina in questo racconto che ti trasporta fino alla fine, ho pensato, glielo dicevo, che non intendo rovinarvelo. Fare le presentazioni in cui si racconta già tutto e quindi voi non avete più nessuna emozione perché ve le abbiamo già filtrate, secondo me è un delitto. Mi piacerebbe parlare invece di tutto ciò che sta intorno a questo libro e come questo libro è stato pensato e costruito. Perché è un libro diverso dagli altri di David Grossman, è un libro che si ispira e racconta fatti realmente accaduti, una storia che lui ha conosciuto e su cui ha lavorato tantissimo. Intanto benvenuto. La prima cosa gli chiederei appunto come è nato questo romanzo, come è nata questa storia.
Shalom, and good afternoon. I'm very glad to come back here again. Yeah. Thank you. It's a good feeling to be here. And thank you, Mario, for the introduction and the arousing of curiosity around the book. The story of how I became to write it started something like 23 years ago when a lady called me on the phone. And I remember her voice, it was very sharp, like Ben-Gurion voice, Ben-Gurion, our legendary prime minister. She said, David? I immediately felt maybe I did something wrong. And then she started to talk with me, and she started to tell about her childhood and about her love to to a Serbian officer with whom she met when she was 17. She was born to a Jewish bourgeois family in Croatia. And the moment she saw this man, and the moment he saw her, they fell in love. But it was really a total hermetic love that left no place to anyone else, maybe. And she just gave me some bits and pieces of her story, and she did it in a very clever way, as if she knew that I'm totally helpless in front of a good story. You know, it is so tempting for a writer, but I think to every one of us, whenever we meet a good story, immediately we recognize it. We recognize that we heard something that we have never heard before, and as if it fell into a place in our heart that was prepared, ready for this story. And in the end of the conversation, she asked if she's allowed to call me sometime in the future. And I said, yes, of course. And well, I think less than a week after that, she called me again and again and again. And this started a friendship that went for more than 20 years until she died at the age of 97. But in the meantime, she deposited in my hands her story. And it is a very unusual story. You know, writers are used to get stories from people. People like to give writers a story, hoping that it will be written sometime. But I never heard such a story. And the power of the story took me, I mean, I just knew I will write this story. I need to write this story. And she, every now and then, she checked up with me if I already started writing her story. And I said, no, Eva, her name was Eva Panich Nahir. Not yet, I still didn't start. And then she died. And after she died only, I was able to write her story. But when I was writing it, before I was writing it, when I was talking with her about it, I told her one thing. Eva, dear Eva, I am not a documentarist. I will not write your story one-to-one as it really happened in reality. I must imagine you. I must invent you. Because only the energy of imagination, this is the carrying wave that will lead me to the story. So the story is a mixture of real facts, very solid facts about her life, about the camp of re-education where she was thrown into by Tito and his people in the end of the 40s of the last century. It is, of course, about the great love between her and her husband-to-be, the story of how he committed suicide and she remained loyal to him. She was a person that was fascinating because there was a mixture about her. You know, on the one side, there was something tough about her, something highly ideological, communist, and almost hermetic in her beliefs and in her ideas. And on the other hand, she was such a soft human being and empathetic and sensitive and taking care of the suffering of everyone around her. And the combination was fascinating. This is what I tried to convey in the book, her impossible combinations.
Grazie. Quindi avete capito che tutto nasce con una telefonata, con una serie di telefonate, di incontri, un'amicizia che cresce e questa storia che viene raccolta, che però viene scritta dopo la morte di Eva, che nel libro si chiama Vera, ed è la storia di Eva, Vera appunto, e di sua figlia che nel libro si chiama Nina. Sulla storia di Eva c'era già un libro di memorie, c'era una serie TV, c'era molto materiale. Allora, quello che vorrei chiederti è come hai lavorato e per quanto tempo nella raccolta del materiale? E questa è la prima domanda. E la seconda, c'è un lavoro il libro è un libro anche di viaggio, c'è un lavoro anche di viaggio che David Grossman ha fatto. Mi piacerebbe che ci raccontassi anche questo viaggio alla scoperta dei luoghi che vengono poi raccontati.
I traveled a lot with this book. Not every book makes me such a traveler, and some of my books, the travel is only inwardly written. But I went to see Goli Otok. Goli Otok, the name which means the naked island, is the place where Eva was imprisoned for 3 years. Most of them she spent in pushing rocks against the slope of a mountain. And she was such a tiny little lady. And to think that she was able to push these rocks. And she told me, I asked her, how did you do it? And she said, I always told myself while I was pushing, I said, Tiana, my daughter, her daughter, Tiana needs a medicine. Tiana is very sick and she needs a medicine. And up there the hill there is a pharmacy. And I will push the rock and push it until I get to the pharmacy, and then I will pull back and go down to find Tiana and to give her the medicine. Such a simple story, and yet you see how a story, an imagination, how it energized her to do something that physically is almost impossible. But also, after I've been to Goli Otok, and Goli Otok is one of the most horrible places on earth, believe me. It is ugly in the way only violence can be ugly. I went to this island twice. Once it was in a storm that really, I came back soaked. Terrible rain, thunders, lightnings. I was able to stay on the island no more than 2 hours. And I decided to come back again. So I came back again the next year, and then it was so hot. It was 42 degrees. So I got all the variety of weathers. And again, I was unable to understand how this woman survived this cruelty. And you know, people who have been to Auschwitz and later were imprisoned in Goli Otok said that Goli Otok was worse. Because in Auschwitz you knew who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. Goli Otok was planned so that every prisoner can be the enemy of any prisoner. If you did a favor to someone, to a friend, if you gave him a slice of bread or a cigarette, if she went and told on you to the superiors there, she would be upgraded in the chance to be released from Goli Otok, and you who gave her, who did the favor to her, you will be punished. So every human being was totally isolated and suspicious and at constant war with all the others around him, and yet she never broke. She never got and told things about her friends. She never gave away any of her comrades. She came back clean and clear as she was when she was sent to Goli Otok. But then I went also to the very north of the globe, to the place that there are no human beings beyond this spot. It's somewhere between Lapland and the North Pole. Because in my story, not in real life, in my story, Nina, the daughter of Vera, she went to live there. Why did she want to live there?
The Svalbard.
Svalbard. It's called Svalbard. Yeah, maybe you heard about it. I was there twice, and I'm willing to go there tonight again. There is kind of a black magic spelled on this place. It's a village of 2,000 people. And some of them work there. There is the largest satellite station in the world. Whenever you are text messaging your friend, you are crossing Svalbard without knowing it. But there are many people there whom you do not ask what are they doing there. You know, they just came there to this no man's land. And there is always a story or a mystery behind almost every human being there. There are huge mountains around this place, wild mountains, and the sea looks like the color is either black or gray, and the sun, you hardly see it, but it's all the time illuminated. When I was there, there are 2 pubs in Svalbard. One declares itself to be the best whiskey of the world, in the world, and the other said the best whiskey in Svalbard. You can imagine where people are going to. And above all, just to make it more spicy, in the mountains around the little village, there are 3,000 polar bears. And you don't mess around with these animals. They are huge, they are dangerous, they are hungry. They do eat people. They ate, I think, since I wrote it, 5 more people have been devoured by polar bears. And if you are going alone in Svalbard, or if you are crossing a certain radius, you are supposed either to carry a gun or to be accompanied by a person with a gun or to be an Israeli. And I must tell you that every night when I went from the pub to my hotel, there are two hotels there.
The best hotel in the world and the best hotel in the Svalbard.
And I walked alone, without a gun, without a person with a gun. And I remember this walk, it's something like 750 meters. I will never forget this walk because, you know, you walk and you almost feel the claws of the grizzly in your back. But I needed it. I needed to feel what Nina felt. Because she wanted to be devoured. She was looking all her life, she looks for a situation that will reduce her, that will erase her step by step. And she says, I want to be in Svalbard because this place is totally indifferent for me. This place erases me with every breath that I take. And again, only when I was there, I was able to understand her physically. Really, all her physical being came to life through this imagined fear that I felt for her.
Avete capito quindi che, vi apro una parentesi, l'isola di Goli Otok, in italiano noi la chiamiamo Isola Calva, ed è quest'isola rocciosa che sta proprio nell'Alto Adriatico, poco sotto fiume, per intenderci, ed è completamente senza vegetazione perché è colpita continuamente dalla bora. E lì Tito aveva messo questo gulag per un decennio in cui andarono tutti gli oppositori, soprattutto dopo la rottura tra la Jugoslavia e l'Unione Sovietica, e quindi tutti quelli che erano pro-Stalin vennero mandati lì con gli oppositori politici. E tutto questo materiale e questa ricerca, quanto tempo hai messo a scrivere questo libro, a riorganizzare tutto, e che metodo hai usato? Perché con tutto questo materiale si poteva fare anche una sorta di libro come avrebbe potuto farlo Carrère, cioè un libro che non era un romanzo ma era un racconto di vita, materiali. Avevi la storia, avevi conosciuto questa donna, avevi le sue memorie, avevi i luoghi, avevi il viaggio, e invece è diventato un romanzo. Come si fa questa trasformazione?
As I said, Mario, I needed to imagine. I cannot write without the pleasure of imagining. There is something in being in the dimension of the imagination that makes everything possible, almost everything possible. And I think that through the imaginary things that I have written about Eva and about her daughter and granddaughter, there is some answer to the unanswered questions in reality. The imagination allows me another way to approach her. And we are not made only of facts, of solid facts. We are made also of the story we tell about ourselves, the story we tell to others, the way we believe in the stories we tell ourselves. I always feel, you know, that every one of us has his or her legislative story. You know, the story that we tell about our childhood, about our parents, about our upbringing, sometimes about how we have been misunderstood by all the people around us, how miserable we were. And over the years, we learn how to polish this story and how to make it more effective so it will gain us the sympathy and the empathy of people that we just meet. It's like a visit card that we submit to new people. But sometimes, maybe after some years, it's worth it to look back and to ask to what extent we have become the prisoners of our official story. To what extent it holds us back. Maybe we are now in another situation. Maybe we can tell ourselves another story. Maybe we can be liberated from some of the aspects of the official story. Now, I respect deeply the official story, and it was essential for its time. But it's so important to come and to retell your own story in somewhat a different way. It will allow you, I think, to cope better with the layers, the many layers of the real story. It will make you more able to touch reality and not only the imagination that has accumulated over the years, or the nightmares, or the wishful thinking. And I say it regarding individuals, but it's also appropriate to countries and nations. They tell themselves the legislative stories usually of the beginning of the establishment of the state. And these stories are very important, very essential at the time, because they create identity and belonging and relevance. But maybe time comes when the state should look at itself and ask whether these stories are still updated. Maybe it's about time to get free from some of the major concepts of the official story that we tell ourselves. Maybe we should not be the victims of our legislative stories. But this is an aside I make, and you asked about the way I accumulated the facts. Always when I write a book, I like to make very deep research, always. When I wrote Qualcuno con cui correre, I joined the secret detective unit of the Jerusalem police for, I think, 9 months, and I enjoyed it so much to play thieves and detectives that when I finished writing the book, but still it was not published, I did not tell my comrades in the unit because I didn't want them to throw me out of this unit and to continue to work every night with them. In another book, Ci sono bambini a zigzag, I drove a train on the way from Haifa, Tel Aviv to Haifa. But of course, I mean, these are the more piquantic ideas. The other pleasures of the research are when you speak with a person and he tells you his story, and suddenly I trace a little detail that maybe the person himself almost overlooked it. And this will be the seed of the story that I will tell. I got so much materials when I was writing it. I wrote it for 3 years. 3 years, it means from morning to almost midnight. No Saturday, no holidays, nothing. I mean, I'm totally addicted when I write. Now I'm not writing, I'm just on the very beginning of writing a new story. And I must tell you that I long for the state of mind of being in a story, because when I'm not writing, things just come one next to the other in a linear way. When I write, and I cannot really explain it, things are interwoven. Every detail of reality has some meaning or some radiation towards other details, and the world suddenly is very rich and very condensed, and I love this situation. Okay, you ask me.
Nel libro ci sono 3 voci femminili. La voce di Vera, di Eva, che ha 90 anni nel libro, c'è la festa dei suoi 90 anni. Poi c'è sua figlia Nina, che a questo punto ha 65 anni, e la nipote Gilly, che ne ha 40. Mi piacerebbe che ci raccontassi perché ci sono 3 voci femminili, il libro sono 3 voci femminili con però 3 linguaggi diversi, 3 modi di parlare diversi, 3 sensibilità diverse. Allora a me ha colpito molto anche la difficoltà di riuscire a dare il tono giusto di voce e di linguaggio a ognuno di loro. Come hai fatto?
You are right. I mean, 3 different women, 3 different dialects. I like it. I mean, it's fun to try to write, first of all, to write from a point of view of a woman. It's much easier for me to write from a point of view of a man, but I don't want to write as I know. I want to write as I do not know. I like this stretching of myself and trying to discover another world, not only to look at the world, but to be in the world with capital B. In several of my books, I wrote from a point of view of a woman. Il Cerbiato and Qualcuno con cui correre, there is a young woman of 16. And of course, here in this book, there is a little story that I like to tell about writing the character of Ora, the main character in A un Cerbiato somiglia di mio amore. And she's a 50 years old Israeli woman, the mother of 2 sons, and the story is about how she is escaping from the bad news about her son, that she knows they will come, the news, and she understands that it takes 2 for bad news, 1 to deliver and 1 to receive, and she decides not to be at home when the notifiers of the army comes to notify her about the death of her son. And the story, again, it's a book of a story, of a voyage. You asked before about the voyage. Every journey jar my basic premises, you know. I like it. I like to be out of my place and to see what happens when I'm exposed to new reality, to new people, to new way of looking at the world. In my book, in the Cerbiato, Ora, by the way, means luce in Hebrew, or. And I wrote her for almost 3 years, and I did not understand her. I mean, there was something very clear missing in the book, in the story, in her character. She was made of words, but this is not enough. You know, you have to have this sparkle or this filament that goes into every human being to make a literary character alive, and she lacked that. She didn't have that, and I was quite desperate because I felt, okay, I'm losing this book. I cannot write this book unless I really know her. I mean, I really mean knowing her, like Adam knew Eve in the book of Genesis. And then, out of despair, I did something strange. I just sat and wrote a letter to her. Not a mail, but a letter with an envelope and a page and a pen. And I remember I started it, "Dear Ora, why are you like that? Why are you so tough and stubborn with me? Why don't you surrender to me?" And I think when I wrote the word, "Why don't you surrender to me?" suddenly it pierced me. My big mistake. It's not Ora who has to surrender to me. It is me who must surrender to Ora. I must stop resisting her or keeping all kind of stiff muscles within me against the need, the must to become a woman, to become Ora. And when I formulated it to myself in such words, suddenly everything went wonderfully. I just had not to interfere. She almost wrote herself. And I thought, I mean, this taught me something in a very sharp way, that we consist of so many others. In so many of us, in every one of us, there are so many options of existence. You know, had we been born to the family next door, had we been born like myself, 1 kilometer west to the place where I am, I could have been, or east, I could have been a Palestinian. Yes, in every normal person, there are some glimpses of insanity that are never explored out of fear. In everyone there are so many options unexplored, and usually we limit ourselves to be only one. It's much more comfortable. It allows us to function in a more efficient and effective way. We are one. usually. We formulate our world with one language or two languages, no more than that, and this dictates the way we are observing the world and experiencing the world. We have usually one gender. We have, of everything is only one. And it's so narrow and it's so dull after all, considering the alternatives, considering the fact that we could have enjoyed being in contact with life through different points of view and different beings. And we are not, usually we are not. But when you write a character and you just allow yourself to be invaded totally by this other. It can be, by the way, your enemy. Yes, I wrote quite a lot about Palestinians, or from the point of view of a Palestinian, and this is not easy. Not easy for me, because, I mean, we are enemies, yes, and suddenly to be able to allow the narrative of the Palestinian to infiltrate into the Israeli Jewish narrative, it's not an easy thing. It's quite threatening. But I must tell you that once I did it, it has not weakened my Israeli identity, not at all. It just made my contact with the world more real. And so it was with the writing of my aura, and so it was with the three women here, Vera, with her very hermetic, order-like dialect, the way she speaks, and her Hebrew echoes the Serbo-Croatian language and the Hungarian language that she grew up on in her family in Čakovec. And Nina, who is floating between the Hebrew and silence, so to say. And Gili, who is a very much typical Israeli woman of 39 years old, and she is the one who tells us the story. It's always so important. This question is crucial. Who will be the teller of the story? Because I thought that if I took Vera, the old lady, to be the teller of the story, which was the most easiest thing for me, because I spoke so much with her and I wrote down so much of her, of the way she speaks, but I thought it will make, after all, a kind of a caricature of her. And I didn't want her. I don't like writers who are caricaturizing their characters. I think that if you write truly about a human being, if you allow this human being to become you and you become him or her, it can never be a caricature. It always must be a whole, a complete character with many layers and inner contradictions. Caricatures do not allow inner contradictions or wholeness. So Eva was not a possible candidate. Nina, the daughter of Eva and the mother of Gili, Nina lives life that is suspended. She lives next to her life. You know, there are these people who live in parallel to the life that they should have lived. And you feel in these people that as if they are whistling near the right tune, not the exact tune, but just 1 millimeter near the right tune. And she would be unable to tell me all the nuances and shades that I needed. So it left me with Gili, and I love Gili. She is ironic, she is funny, she is very emotional, but she hides it. And she, unlike Nina, who was affected dramatically by the major act of Vera that we cannot tell here in order not to make a spoiler, but Nina got the strongest radiation of the decision of her mother, but Nili is somewhat a little more remote. She can have a kind of an overlook of all the situation and all the story.
Mi piacerebbe chiedere a David Grossman se vuole leggerci, farci sentire, nessuno di noi capirà e non c'è traduzione, ma farci sentire come suona la lingua che lui scrive, come la scrive lui. Perché mi sembra che dopo quello che ci ha raccontato, prima gli ho chiesto se aveva voglia di leggerci.
Yes, I do want to read, and actually, wherever I am in the world, I like to read, even for 2 minutes, just to allow the melody of the Hebrew to resound here. I'll read from the very beginning of the book. רפאל היה בן 15 שמתה אימא שלו וגאלה אותו מייסוריה. גשם ירד על חברי הקיבוץ שהצטופפו תחת מטריות בבית הקברות הקטן. טוביה, אביו של רפאל, מרר בבכי. שנים טיפל באשתו במסירות ועכשיו נראה אבוד ומיותם. רפאל, במכנסיים קצרים, עמד נבדל מהאחרים וכיסה את ראשו ואת עיניו בקפוצ'ון שלא יראו שהוא לא בוכה. הוא חשב, עכשיו שהיא מתה, היא יכולה לראות את כל הדברים שחשבתי עליה. זה היה בחורף 1962. אחרי שנה פגש אבא שלו את ורה נובק שבאה לארץ מיוגוסלביה, והם התחילו לחיות כזוג. ורה הגיעה לישראל עם ביתה היחידה, נינה, נערה בת 17, גבוהה ובהירת שיער, שבפנים הארוכות שלה, שהיו חברות ויפות מאוד, כמעט לא הייתה הבאה. נערים בכיתה של רפאל קראו לנינה ספינקס, היו מתגנבים מאחוריה ומחקים אותה בהליכתה, מחבקת את גופה בזרועותיה ובוהה במבט חלול. הייתה פעם אחת שהיא תפסה שני חבר'ה שחיכו אותה, ופשוט פוצצה להם את הפרצוף. מכות כאלה עוד לא ראו בקיבוץ. היה קשה להאמין כמה כוח ופראות היו לה בזרועות וברגליים הדקות שלה. התחילו לרוץ שמועות. סיפרו שבזמן שאימא שלה הייתה אסירה פוליטית בגולג, נזרקה נינה, שהייתה אז ילדה, לרחוב. אמרו לרחוב והוסיפו מבט רב משמעות. סיפרו שהצטרפה בבלגרד לכנופיה של ילדי פרא שחטפה ילדים כדי לקבל כופר. סיפרו, אנשים מדברים. הסיפור של המכות וגם עוד התרחשויות ושמועות לא הבקיעו את הערפל שרפאל חי בו אחרי מות אמו. במשך חודשים הוא היה שקוע בהרדמה עצמית. פעמיים ביום, בבוקר ובערב היה בולע כדור שינה שלקח מארון התרופות של אמו. הוא אפילו לא הבחין בנינה שנתקל בה פה ושם בקיבוץ. Thank you.
Noi oggi viviamo in una società in cui soprattutto la politica è una politica maschile, muscolare.
I don't have a translation. But
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, ask me.
Sì.
In Italian.
You have the translation?
Paolo, I don't hear the translation. Okay, I'll try to understand Italian. Okay.
If you want, I can speak you in English.
Okay.
I can ask you in English. We live in a masculine society, but in your book, ok, viviamo in una società maschile con una...
Okay, try. Yes,
Ok.
yes.
Viviamo in una società maschile in cui abbiamo una politica che è tutta fatta di forza, lo si vede in Israele, lo si vede negli Stati Uniti, in Europa, in Russia. Il mondo è un mondo che è sempre di più dettato da rapporti di forza e da rotture. Questo libro, ancor più che gli altri libri, sembra raccontarci che un altro mondo è possibile, un mondo più femminile, con più sfumature, con una capacità di costruire ponti, una capacità di recuperare, una capacità anche di compassione, di accoglienza, di perdono. C'è anche questo messaggio nel libro?
I hope so. I, like you, like most of us here, I believe, we live in a world that becomes less and less understandable and more vigorous, indifferent to the human being. A world that so often is really unbearable to, for me, it's unbearable to be in. I think that so much of the story that we tell ourselves about our life becomes what the mass media is imposing on us. And the mass media is the most dominant way to create the human story today. So much of our life, of the way we see ourselves, the way we see others, the way we see values, is dictated by the mass media. Now, the mass media can be very helpful and useful when it is delivering news and give decent commentary and allows place to doubts and to contradictions. But this is not the majority of the mass media. The mass media is a notion that was coined by sociologists in the 30s of the previous century. And there is a trick in this term, the mass media, because we think when we say mass media that we are meaning a media that is tuned to the masses. But actually, deep in its being, it's a media that turns human beings into masses, and sometimes even into a mob, by its self-righteousness, by its sentimentality, kitsch, by the way it dichotomizes between us, the good guys, and them, the bad guys. And because it is so dominant, and because we are all the time exposed to this narrative, we start to believe that the world is really like that. And the world is not necessarily like that. You know, there are so many other ways to be in this life. I feel that writing, the act of writing, is a kind of saying, I believe in a dialogue. I believe in real people talking to each other. I don't want to be a victim to the narrative of my society or the narrative of my enemy. Anyhow, I hate the word narrative. Narrative for me is a human story that has frozen, that has congealed. And when I write, I try, no matter what I write about, it can be relationship of husband and wife, of parents and children, of siblings, of friends, whatever, I tried all the time to massage this stiff muscle of the narrative, because every one of us, we have a narrative, even in our married life or as parents, we have a narrative. And it's so tempting to use this narrative because it organizes the world in a more simple way to us. But it does not organize the world. It organizes only images of the world, and they are thick images. And in order to survive in this reality, we have to put so much effort in order to be able to insist on nuances, not to be taken, not to be swept by this generalizing language of the mass media. And of course, when you write literature, the ability to go to a human being that beforehand was a stereotypical person in your eyes. Yes, if I'm writing about a Palestinian, if I'm writing about a settler, if I write about any other that before I just knew his or her stereotype, and suddenly I untie the stereotype. And there are very few more sweet pleasures than untying a stereotype. And you know, I remember a very famous example when President Sadat of Egypt, when he came to Israel in '77, now he was our enemy for years and years, and he was the devil, okay? But suddenly when he came out of the plane, and there was this charming Egyptian person with his sense of humor and the way he flirted with Golda Meir, our prime minister. I mean, she was already not the prime minister, but he called her the old lady, and he liked her, and she liked him. And suddenly there was a human being in front of us. And I remember the wave of emotionality that swept through Israel, because suddenly we were relieved of the ugly duty or the ugly temptation to see someone as a stereotype. Because if you see someone as a stereotype, first you need to make yourself a stereotype. And when he is unstereotyped, we are also being approved that we are human beings. Because in a way we redeem the kind of a terra incognita inside us by allowing our enemy to be a human being. And you know, we always need the confirmation from those who denied us of this confirmation. These are the most relevant and important people to us, even when they are our enemies. And it is only the enemy who can really bring us back some of the things that we have lost. Because, you know, it is the enemy towards whom we are directing our most ugly parts and ugly dimensions, our cruelty, our beastiness sometimes, our superficial thought. But we want to believe that when we are doing it, we are just using those ugly qualities. And when the war will be over, then again we shall regain our humanity and our multi-layered look at the world and our complexity. No, maybe the enemy realizes much before we do to what extent these bad qualities have infiltrated into our own inner organs, and to what extent they pollute us and distort us and change us forever. So it's very useful to look at ourselves through the eyes of the enemy. We shall learn a lot of things that we prefer not to learn.
Grazie. Mentre parlavi guardavo la platea e vedevo che le donne, ho fatto 2 conti, sono il doppio degli uomini. Così come i lettori di libri, le lettrici sono il doppio dei lettori. Allora volevo chiederti, perché le donne leggono più degli uomini, secondo te? E se magari gli uomini leggessero un po' di più, sarebbe un po' meglio il mondo in cui viviamo?
Somehow I feel the question is more interesting than the answer. You are absolutely right. Women read more. By the way, there is a very positive development to that, and that is that women write more. There are more and more writers, women writers in Israel, but not only in Israel. And of course, it has to do with the fact that we are raised and educated, and where men are programmed to go and where women are programmed to go. Well, I have nothing more to add to that. Just I'm sorry for men who are not readers, who are not experiencing life through reading, who are afraid of emotions, who are afraid to be considered as not manly enough. I think they will make their manhood only richer. Somehow only women are clapping.
Un'altra parte fondamentale di questo libro è la memoria. E si capisce quanto sia fondamentale recuperare la memoria e fare luce nelle parti buie che sono rimaste nella memoria. Allora voglio chiedere se però la memoria può essere utilizzata per guarire le ferite, per chiudere, per voltare le pagine, oppure si rischia che la memoria le riapra le ferite e che porti nuove conflittualità.
Of course, every situation of relationship between human beings is unique, and it's hard to draw a general conclusion. But memory, of course, creates the story we tell ourselves. Coming from my background, I'm Jewish. I think we are the only religion that orders its people to remember. And one of the first commandments to the Jewish people is remember what your great enemy Amalek did to you. Remember it, you know. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Or all the ceremony of the Passover, the Seder that we are doing the evening before Passover, where the main order of it is to tell the younger ones about our history. Vehigadeta levincha, and you have to tell your son. And of course, it creates a line of a narrative, as we said now, and maybe the best thing for a people is to forget also some things, to forget to be able, to understand that the evil that has been done to you, it occurred. You cannot change the fact. You cannot change the pain that you feel whenever you think about it. The trauma you suffered from as a child, they will always with you. You will carry them. But maybe your attitude towards being in front of them will change. Maybe you will not totally collaborate with the will of revenge, for example, or the rage that you feel for those who have hurted you. And I don't forget in front of whom I'm sitting. I think the ability, the very hard to achieve ability, and I cannot tell you that myself I'm able to fulfill it regarding injustice that I felt was done to me, or pain or grief. I cannot say I can totally forgive. I'm not a saint. But I realize that when I collaborate with rage and vengefulness, I actually collaborate with those who did the trauma to me or did the evil to me. And I don't want to collaborate with them, and I don't want to give them such a place in my life. And I know that my way to move forward depends on my ability to find a new location in front of the trauma that has damaged my life. Just to find a new location, no more than that, not to forgive, not to forget. Just because by so doing, by being able to move freely, suddenly you are not paralyzed by what was done to you, and you are no more a totally passive victim of what has been done to you. And not to be a victim for a traumatized person is a great, great victory. Yeah.
Farei un'ultima domanda sul libro e poi abbiamo 10 minuti. Mi piacerebbe parlare un attimo anche di Israele. Nel libro si parla tantissimo di documentari. La ragazza giovane, la voce narrante, è una documentarista. Si parla tantissimo di video, di documentari, di riprese. È un libro figlio della società dell'immagine. Però alla fine, senza svelarvi il perché, la parola scritta rimane regina. È solo perché chi l'ha scritto è uno scrittore, o perché sei convinto che la parola scritta avrà ancora un ruolo cruciale nella nostra esistenza?
I want to believe. I'm not sure it is, but I want to believe. And I think I became a writer because for me, the way to understand and again to be in the world is through words and through finding other new nuances and the need not to use words of others. I always feel that a writer is someone who feels claustrophobic in words of other people. And he or she must burst out of the cliches in order to breathe. And it is like that, this is what drives me, I think, to tell a story that has been told in the past, and most stories have been told in the past, but to use new words, because once you use a new word, another nuance of reality is open to you. Suddenly you see more, you understand more, you understand deeper. Of course, images, visual images are very strong. And yet somehow, and I cannot give you any logical explanation for that, I feel that more manipulation can be done, more manipulations can be done with the visual images rather than in words. And I'm always a little suspicious towards the visual images. And you are right, I mean, Gili is making a documentary of her family story, but in the end, what will remain, I believe, is a story of written words.
Grazie.
Thank you.
In Israele si terranno le terze elezioni in 11 mesi alla fine dell'inverno, all'inizio di primavera. E in Israele, come in Spagna, come abbiamo visto in Gran Bretagna, in Italia, la difficoltà di avere dei governi, di trovare una strada, è diventata quasi un punto cruciale. Allora mi piacerebbe capire che cosa sta succedendo e se le nostre democrazie si stanno consumando in questa partigianeria, in questa divisione, in questa impossibilità di riuscire a costruire governi, a trovare maggioranze, se questo sta consumando la democrazia.
To be democratic means to put very clear effort of believing in things sometimes against your instincts. To believe that everyone was born equal. Not everybody wants to believe that everyone was born equal. To be able to contain other identity within your national identity. To give legitimacy to the suffering of other groups in your society. My dear friend who passed away a year ago, Amos Oz, the great Israeli writer and a good friend of mine, he said, yeah, please, yeah. Yeah. It's really a heavy loss for all of us there, and it's very strange to be without Amos, to consult with him or to share with him and to learn from him. He was first and foremost a teacher, a real teacher. And he said, a person is born right-winger. First, you are born right-winger because the instincts of the newborn of every person are instinct of the right wing. And in order to become a leftist, you must make an opinionated effort against your drives and your instincts sometimes. And what I feel is that less and less people are willing to make this opinionated effort in the world, but I'll talk about Israel alone. We are a democracy. It's one of the miracles of Israel to be a democracy. It was created as a democracy. Even those, our parents and the people who came into Israel in 1948 when it was established, most of them didn't know anything about democracy. They came from Poland, Morocco, Iraq, Egypt, Romania. What did they know? What did my grandfather or my father know about democracy, freedom of press, freedom of expression? They knew nothing. And yet, from the first day, they declared that Israel will be a democracy and that the non-Jewish minority of the Palestinians who stayed in Israel, they will benefit from all the equal rights like every Israeli Jew. But to be an occupier for 52 years of another people as we are occupying the Palestinians, I'm sorry, this cannot go hand in hand with being a democracy. There is a problem about it, built-in problem. And in order to maintain such an occupation without almost any interference, it goes on like that quite smoothly, let alone some eruptions every decade. It means that the majority of the Israelis taught themselves to live perfect life without really being aware of what they are doing, of what is being done by their name in the areas of the occupation. Now, Israel is a country that, for me, is almost a miracle. to think that we were able to create this country 3 years after the end of the Second World War and after the end of the Shoah, the Holocaust, that exterminated 1/3 of our people. 6 million people have been murdered in the Shoah. 3 years later, we had a state, and we created so much walks of life in a miraculous way, from culture to agriculture and high-tech and industry and many, many ways of life. And there is only one important dimension that we are totally paralyzed, and this is the dimension of making peace with our neighbors. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I think that the Middle East is a nice and friendly place for us. No, not at all. The Middle East never has internalized the right of Israel to exist there. Most of the people in the Muslim countries around us believe that we are only an extension of the Western imperialism. They totally fail to understand that we belong to this place because there we originated as a people, as a culture, as a religion, as a language. This is our home. It's meant to be our home, and until Arab countries understand it, there will not be a real peace between us. The problem from my point of view as an Israeli who wants to be in Israel, who feels that Israel is the only relevant place for him in the world, who wants to see the sequence of my children and grandchildren there, the thing that matters to me is to be able to create a reality that we shall be very strong militarily. We need to be very strong. We cannot be surprised there, and we cannot. And the Middle East is an unpredictable place, and you see what happens in Iraq, in Yemen, all over the place, in Syria. But army alone cannot guarantee our existence and cannot answer the complexity of our being there. We need a strong army that will be all the time on alert, and we need to have peace with our neighbors. We must have peace with our neighbors. We must create a reality in which the flames under the conflict would be reduced gradually to the extent that we shall be able to start to live normal life at our home. I said the word home twice already by now. Israel was created to be the home for the Jewish people. One of the definitions for me of a Jew throughout history is that we never really felt at home in the world, even in the most hospitable places. We never felt at home in the world. Israel is meant to be our home. I wish it will be our home. Right now, because of the occupation, because we have not ended the state of war between us and our neighbors, and not only because of us, not only us. The Arabs are very effective partners to the distortion of not having peace. But unless we have peace, we shall not really have a home, and Israel will be more of a fortress than of a real home, as a home should be. Unless the Palestinians have their home, we shall not have our home. Only when they have their home, we shall have our home, and vice versa. Only when we feel at home, they will have their homes, as I really wish for them, because occupation corrupts not only the occupier, but also the occupied. And I see what happens to the Palestinian society after 52 of being humiliated and denied and crushed. And I really wish for them to feel the taste of peace. I'm not sure I know what is the taste of peace, because unlike all of you here, I did not have one day in my life of peace. I know only what living in war means. But I can, maybe because of that, I'm so yearning to have real peace, because I think that peace is not only solving the territorial questions, which are important, or the problems of water, which water belongs to whom, or solving the problem of the refugees, which is essential. But it's another way to be in the world. If you are not afraid, if there is not existential danger hovering about you all the time, if your morning and noon and evening news are not polluting you all the time with descriptions of violence and hatred and suspicions, this is a way to be in the world that I really don't know. I can only dream about. I can only hope. I hope I will see in my lifetime some of these ideas come true. I'm not sure. I'm sure that even if there is a peace treaty, peace agreement today between us and the Palestinians, so many hard things and hard qualities that have been engraved in us will still remain for some decades, if not generations. But if we do not start today or tomorrow, even in 50 years, we shall not enjoy this situation of living life of peace.
L'ultima domanda su questo, com'è la situazione della società israeliana? C'è stanchezza verso la politica e mi piacerebbe capire come le voci come la tua sono accolte, o di fronte alla questione palestinese è ancora il tema della società, oppure le persone girano la testa dall'altra parte?
You know, I'll tell you a little anecdote. Some weeks ago, I gave a lecture in a school in Jerusalem, and I was talking about the occupation. And after a while, a pupil raised his hand and asked, "Excuse me, what do you mean by occupation?" And I said, well, we are occupying another people. And I felt that it came like almost something totally new to his friends. They might have heard it over the radio, but they never really gave their opinion to it thoroughly. And there is a whole structure of denial and of suppressing the knowledge of the occupation, and a whole amazing building of bridges and tunnels above and under Palestinian villages. So those who are traveling in the occupied territories are not confronted with the occupation at all. And I think I answered part of it before, but I will tell you that because the situation becomes more and more insoluble, or so we are led to believe, because the situation is so complicated and each side has some right points in his argument, most Israelis prefer just to put themselves on a sleep mode, you know. They feel they cannot deal anymore with the complexity of the situation. They feel that there is no out from this situation. We have a prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a genius in the way he knows how to mix together the real dangers that Israel faces, and we do face real dangers, but Netanyahu is an expert in stirring them together with the echoes of past trauma. And for a traumatized society like us, we are totally helpless in front of such manipulation. And he knows how to push every button. And of course, the buttons of fear and anxiety and despair, these are the dominant emotions in Israel today. And, you know, people are easily reacting to fears. And fear is something that we are acquainted with. It helped us survive throughout history. And there is nothing new about it for us. And because of that also, Netanyahu is so popular for 12 years, more than David Ben-Gurion was when he sat in office. So what happens is that there are growing chunk of population that are totally indifferent to the situation, but in order to be indifferent, they have to be apathetic. They have actively not to know. So, as I said, they put themselves to sleep. There is apathy, there is fatalism. Now, there is a problem in fatalism and apathy, because the void between the citizens and what their country is doing on their behalf, the void is growing and deepening, but it never remains empty. Because always there will be elements who have a very strict agenda, very fundamental and extreme agenda, and they will pour into this void, and they will dictate for us our future, and they will kidnap our children, and they will be the dominant part of Israel in some years. This is why it is so urgent, and maybe the next elections will be the last that it will be possible to allow another way of dealing with the conflict. To tell you that I'm sure who is going to win, I'm not sure. Maybe we shall find ourselves in next March, after the third elections, in the same situation as we are now. There is this deadlock or dead end. It is quite terrifying. We are in an unfamiliar situation. I mean, you in Italy, you are much more experienced about that. Maybe you can consult us with that. I don't want to think of the night of the elections that we shall find that we repeated ourselves, because then what? Even if there will be a unity government between the right wing, the Likud, and Blue Vice of Benny Gantz, the new guy who is confronting and challenging Netanyahu, even if there is a unity government, and I mean, maybe it will be a good way out of the deadlock solution, but such government is not going for peace. Such government is not able to do the steps that are needed in order to meet the demands of the Palestinians. Not all the demands of the Palestinians are right, and I can accept it, but the consensus in Israel is so far away from the consensus in Palestine. So even if there is a unity government, I'm not very optimistic. I met Benny Gantz, the leader of the Blue-White party, before the first elections, actually a year and a half ago, and we spoke, and I asked him, what is your attitude towards having peace with the Palestinians? He said, I do not believe the Palestinians, and I do not believe the ability to have peace with them. But unlike Netanyahu, I will turn every stone in order to find a chance for it. This is what he told me a year and a half ago. I would love to see him doing that.
Grazie. Abbiamo finito il nostro tempo. L'ultima domanda mi piacerebbe farla. Hai scritto molti libri per bambini, hai 2 nipotine. Come si insegna e si trasmette l'amore per la lettura?
We read books for them. I think children are able to understand that there is something new even when they are half a year old. They react to the melody of the story, to the rhythm of the story. When I write my stories for children, I always think of this moment in the day, the 10 minutes after we finished all the duties of the child, and after a whole day of activity, they are a little tired and we are very exhausted. And we can enter with them the bubble of the good night story. And the bubble of the good night story is a very sweet bubble, because it can convey past the child to a reality that he does not necessarily know, to a language that somewhat is a little different from the usual language spoken at home or in the kindergarten, to a reality where humor is legitimate, where absurd and surreal action and thoughts are legitimate. And more than everything, I remember when my father read me stories when I was very young. And my father was a very authoritative person, but when he read books, he was swept by the stories. And I remember catching glimpse of my father as a young boy. Suddenly I saw this authoritative person as a young boy. And it's such a wonderful experience for both parent and child. And it's also a wonderful introduction in sailing of the child to the night, because the night is something so frightening for a child. It's darkness. He hears all the others other members of the family doing their business in other rooms, and the sounds come different to him when he listens to them. He sees the shadow of, the shadow of his sleeve on the chair like a trunk of an elephant. The night is also dreams. And a child do not necessarily understand the difference between dream and reality. And how come Daddy cannot jump into the dream and save him from the devil that was there? And all these obstacles of the night, the child should be sent to the night very and highly protected. And this is what I try to do in my children books, which are much more merciful than my books for grown-ups.
Grazie. Grazie a David Grossman e grazie a tutti voi. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.